And good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on cyber modernization. My name is Skip Sanzeri. I am co-founder and chief operating officer here at QSecure. Our charge is to bring cyber modernization to government and enterprise, and we have specific post-quantum cybersecurity solutions available. We'll show you how those can be deployed in the enterprise later on in the presentation. By now, for those of you that have attended our webinars, you're pretty aware of this quantum threat. The fact is that all of the encryption we use globally for PKI, or our public key encryption, is under threat. We've been using really the same schemas since 1977, but the key sizes have changed, so we've increased key sizes to stay ahead of the curve. For instance, now we use 2048-bit encryption. When RSA started, it was 512. But this is still a single dimension of security. And if you think about it, it's really solving one math problem, which is prime number factoring. What we need to do is move to a new and more modern form of encryption. You probably heard things like cryptographic agility, zero trust, attack monitoring, adaptation. These are new terms that are going to move us from this single dimension of security into the future. Also, some of you may be aware that Department of Justice and FBI just announced that they busted a group called, or a malware called Snake, out of a group in Russia that had been, I guess, entranced in our infrastructure for over 20 years now. Not good at all. And the problem is that data has been exfiltrated. We hope that it's all secure and it has algorithms, but the problem is that if a quantum computer comes around, it's going to crack that encryption on all that data that's been stolen. And then we don't know what disruption or other can happen with that. So, and those of you, again, that have watched us, you know that quantum computers will enable a great deal of power for humanity. We've got a lot of applications that quantum can be aimed at. However, first one we believe is that these systems will be weaponized. They are an existential threat to the US, and we need to address this. Every bit of encrypted data that's stolen today from our communications now could be made available with a quantum computer. So in today's presentation, we have a group of exciting presenters. We're going to talk about how to prepare your organization for a post-quantum world. We're also going to cover available solutions for cyber modernization. And we'll actually do demonstrations of actual quantum protected communications that you can put in your enterprise or government agency right now. At the end of the presentation, we'll have Q&A. And for those familiar with Zoom, you might see a Q&A button down at the bottom. Along the way, go ahead and enter all your questions, and then we'll handle them all at the end so the whole audience can hear about those. Additionally, we will make this webinar available on our website within a day or two, and we'll let all of you know when that happens. So let's go to our presenters today. We have some fantastic folks. First up will be Craig Hill. Craig is a distinguished architect in the US public sector CTO's office at Cisco and is going on his 28th year there. Craig focuses on a wide breadth of technologies and global architectures, with some of Craig's largest customers being DoD, US intelligence, and Fortune 100. Craig's recent work has been looking at Cisco's high-speed encryption solutions, zero trust concepts, and ways to start integrating quantum-safe encryption technology into those solutions today. Next up will be Garrison Buss. Garrison is the Chief Strategy Officer here at QSecure, responsible for a variety of tasks, and most importantly, customer deployment. Garrison obtained his PhD from Stanford University and has gone on to have high C-level positions at a variety of startups, and is a general partner at Superposition Venture Capital. Rebecca Crothamer is up next. Becca is co-founder and chief product officer at QSecure. Those in the quantum space are very familiar with Becca, as you may have seen her out speaking in a variety of areas. She studied symbolic systems at Stanford and was named Forbes 30 under 30 for her work in quantum computing, and also was named Forbes 40 under 40. I joke with her about if you 50 under 50. I'm going for a 90 under 90 pretty soon myself. She was also one of the top 12 women in quantum named earlier And she's an active leader in the quantum community. She serves on the Global Futures Council at the quantum computing effort for the World Economic Forum, and is also on the drafting committee for the WEF as well. Becca also serves on the advisory board of the AI Ethics Journal, and we have a feeling that AI ethics will probably come in very handy here in these times. So let's get ready to get started here. So I'm going to hand over to Craig Hill to kick us off. Craig, please proceed.
Hey, I personally want to thank Q-Secure for the opportunity today to to be here. Appreciate the attendees as well. And so if you remember in the opening comments, some of the areas that I've been focusing on is really around large scale encryption for some of our largest customers. That's in DoD, intelligence, commercial, Fortune 100s, and anything from 1 meg to 400 gig. And what's been really happening is I'm starting to have a lot more discussions around, hey, how do we get started? How do we get going with, quantum safe capabilities with those commercial off-the-shelf encryption? And that's really what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. If you go to the next slide. And this is a slide that, all I'm saying here really is I can talk to some of my most trusted experts in this space, inside of Cisco, outside of Cisco, and that most of them do not want to commit. And what we see in the industry is we just don't know when it's a complete wild card. That was a theme at RSA. I think all of us know that we just don't know when this is coming. But what we do know, and if you go to the next slide, some of the requirements for getting there and starting this is so critical. Like, for example, U.S. government, confidentiality there can last for decades. The urgency is even higher for those folks. So really, it's all about starting the planning process. And there may be some of you out there that are saying, are you kidding me? I've been planning this for 2-3 years, and outstanding if you're starting that. But it's really tough on us because it's so fluid how some of the standards with some of the ciphers we're looking at and some of the NIST standards are continuing to evolve. So what I would say is the first 2 bullets are really very, organizational dependent. What areas within the organization do you want to start? What are at the most risk? I would evaluate where you want to start within your organization. But then I go to the third bullet, and it's really, beginning that assessment. And I think one of the areas that I wanted to do for you is try to put some handles on this, specifically number 4, which is really around, hey, how can, for example, Cisco and other vendors and how we're evolving help you? And, some of the things I came up with early was, just talking to some of my Cisco experts, some of those folks you may be aware of, folks like Dave McGrew, who's an industry expert, Scott Fleur, who is doing a lot of our standards. So not only from a Cisco perspective, but, contributions to the industry around this post-quantum era that we're moving into and trying to get the safe element of that. Some other areas which was relatively new to me were some of the digital signatures. So as we get to post-quantum signing, Cisco's been implementing something called LDWM for a while, which is really the post follow-on to that is LMS that some of you may be familiar with. And that's really where, for example, NSA is moving towards for the 2025 compliance element. I'll talk a little bit about some of the things we're doing with commercial off-the-shelf encryption. Some things around IKV2 and where we're mixing pre-shared keys, which is what we use today. It's very predominant in network encryption. And but the big one I wanted to hit, if you go to the next slide, Pat, is this protocol that we created, and it is within Cisco. It'll be interesting if we take this to the standards body, which might not be a bad idea. But the idea with Skip is this. What it does is really 2 things. It allows customers that are running commercial off-the-shelf encryption today to start looking at ways to leverage post-quantum security methods, right? So that would be one thing. And the second thing, which I really love, is the ability for customers to leverage their existing commercial off-the-shelf encryption like MACsec or IPsec and start taking advantage of post-quantum security methods to secure those links. So what Skip is, it's the protocol. We will, anyone who's interested and has some kind of external key server, We have a set of instructions, APIs to actually create this. We use a form of Diffie-Hellman and TLS 1.2 to make the skip communication protocol quantum safe. But it gives the customers that capability to get started, specifically when they're already running, some form of network encryption. There's a link below there. It's a little small, but you guys will have access to that where you can dig a little deeper. If you go to the next slide, what I did was I did 2 use cases, and I wanted to share those with you because these are real. So any of you who are looking to say, hey, where can I get started? Can I get started today? Can I leverage my solutions today? This is a network design that I'm working with a lot of customers on. Think of this as like a continental US design. You see that it's very regional focused, leveraging regional co-location centers. Big reason for that is applications moving to the cloud. So this architecture caters very nicely to that, as well as network or cloud delivered services. But the real key here is when we do this intra-region connectivity, it's typically with 10 gig or 100 gig MACsec. Well, leveraging this PPK capability, this post-quantum pre-placed key capability, and in this example, we're using it manually, or we would be putting the keys manually on the routers. But it gives me a quantum resistant MACsec session between these regions, where today I'm pretty much running, standard based, COTS-based MKA type, keying with AES-256 GCM. So I have the ability to create a quantum safe session between those regions. And this is available today, by the way, in some of our latest software on our iOS XR, router platforms. If you go to the next slide, Pat, use case 2 is more in development and some work we're doing with QSecure. And specifically, the goal is to include Quirk in this. If you look at this diagram, you'll see that skip protocol highlighted as a communication future from Quirk, which will act as that key distribution platform for us to populate these post-quantum keys down into the routing elements. And then we would set up a quantum safe session, to a destination where the apps live. So if you look at use case 1, for example, pretty straightforward using RFC 8784. It's just a mixing of pre-shared keys with IKE version 2 extensions, which derivation-wise provides us a post-quantum security session. Now, 2 things. Use case 1, you can see that I'm actually extending that session from, say, a physical router on the left to a virtual router on the right. So we support RF 8784, this capability in our virtual routers as well. So we could extend that, for example, to AWS or Azure or GCP or some of the other cloud providers or even data centers. And then example number 2 is doing the same. I'm terminating in a co-location space into another router. And then from there, I can extend that into the cloud as well. I'm hoping in the future, as I talked about MACsec on the last slide, I've been doing a lot of work with some of the customers extending their workloads into AWS and Azure via MACsec, which is offered in 10 or 100 gig flavors. And I'm hoping, maybe we start looking at that as well so we can create this full end-to-end capability. Now, use case number 3, which is around QSL, Garrison hit this already. We just wanted to talk about it and let you see it in a more enterprise architecture capability, whether it be over private link transport or the internet. You could bring IoT into this mix over LoRaWAN. So there's a lot of capabilities you could do with Q Everywhere, which is, I really like what QSecure is doing there. But then we also want to try to start integrating Quirk into the network encryption capabilities, as I'm showing here. So we're in early stages of development with them on Skip as well. So if you go to the next slide, just to wrap this up, Pat. I think the key takeaways for me here are really, we talked about the when, which is we really don't know yet. But, it's all about those threats and planning now. And everyone I talk to, I think it's almost obvious that we need to start planning and start, even challenging the vendors and saying, hey, how can we get there? And I think, as I mentioned in the 3rd pillar here, the ability to leverage open standard RFC 8784, things like Skip. There's some other things evolving similar to Skip and like Etsy. and the idea that I can leverage my installation base and my commercial off-the-shelf encryption today to start moving and leverage some post-quantum capabilities in my network. And that's really the key takeaway here. And I think I'd leave this with just, I love my early workings with QSecure. I love their innovation. Those of you who haven't seen what they're doing with, or what they did with Accenture, extending a quantum safe session up to different constellations for routers in space, or should I say communications up to the different constellations capabilities at the LEO and GEO layer. And that's some of the work that they're doing there, and some of the innovation that they're showing is just really, really appealing to hopefully partnering with us with Cisco and helping you guys get to where we need to be. Last thing I'll leave you with, the Cisco Quantum Lab, relatively new. I'm really excited about this. Don't have a lot to tell you other than there's the link and you're going to start seeing some things. I'm hoping to get QSecure in that as well. But we're going to continue to generate some research projects and hopefully endpoint solutions out of that Cisco Quantum Labs.
There we go. Awesome. Thanks. Hey, Pat, go to the next slide, please. All right, so we'll start with kind of QSecure's vision of what modern cryptography is going to look like. And you can see here a few concepts illustrated on this slide: entropy, one key versus multiple keys, PQC, and crypto agility. So QSecure really views the future of modern crypto as the ability to basically have an abstraction layer at full visibility and control over all of these elements delivered via a zero trust architecture. So starting over on the left with entropy, we believe that high quality entropy derived from whatever source that you deem most relevant to you, right? This can be a QRNG or other hardware-based random number generator, sufficiently random, pseudo-random numbers, or whatever you would like, right, to generate those high quality keys. And being able to kind of choose your source and integrate that into your cryptography is something that we think is fundamental to the future. So too is the ability to use multiple keys versus a single key in your transmissions, right? So if you're wanting to have a known lifetime of a key instead of letting it proliferate forever, and you're able to actually then dynamically update them at whatever interval that you set, either by policy or by configuration. Of course, here at QSecure, we are focused on delivering PQC, but that's actually just one element of a larger push towards crypto agility. So we know that all of cybersecurity is a basically dance between threat and remediation, where you have, we've gone from DES to triple DES and ECDH and so on. So we don't think that PQC is an end in itself, rather that this is just another kind of transitory upgrade that we're going to have to do. And we should make this a modular function as we go forward, such that when it's time to upgrade again, we're able to do this easily. Finally, all of this is overlaid on a zero trust architecture, allowing you to get auditability and visibility into your endpoints to say, I know for sure that service A or server A is using this type of cryptography with this key length, et cetera. So again, all of this is just basically being able to go in and have great visibility and control over your cryptographic environment. Next slide, please. So what is the product today, and how can QSecure kind of help to upgrade your enterprise to all of these great things that we've shown you in the previous slide, all of those core tenets? We actually have two products that are being shown here. One on the left is Q Everywhere, and on the right is Q Network. You're going to hear a little bit more about Q Everywhere in Craig's portion of the talk, and also in Rebecca's video demo that we're going to show you in just a second. Q Everywhere is the ability for us to provide from your web server with basically a 2-hour install, instantaneous upgrade to PQC, and again, a whole lot of visibility into that channel. Q Network is a similar protection, but this is for server-to-server applications. So you can think about these as complementary, Q Everywhere being outside of perimeter or outside of firewall in old parlance, and Q Network is within perimeter. And all of this is facilitated by Quark and our quantum secure layer. That is basically our IP that allows you to, again, gain all of that visibility into both of those services, provide keys, manage them, and policies that are associated. Next slide, please. So here's a notional diagram of what our vision for the future of cryptography looks like in a hybrid cloud scenario. So up in the upper right, you can see the Q client devices. These are phones, laptops, and other end user devices. Again, considered out of perimeter, they're being served by Q everywhere. In the cloud, as well as in the data center below, you can see that our Q proxy has been inserted in between all of the middleware that allows these devices ultimately to receive their information, but so too the services contained on each of these servers to interact with one another in a post-quantum way. All of these proxies are registered to the Quark and fed keys and entropy by our Quark, ensuring that you have, again, control and visibility over those proxies, and you're able to set by policy whatever you want to configure. So this is, again, different entropy sources, key lengths, rotation, as well as the ability to affect the cryptography that's being done at these endpoints. So if you choose to use a different, for example, NIST round 4 finalist instead of Crystal's Kyber, you can switch to Bike or Macaleese or another code-based algorithm. So again, this is full control over your environment today. And with that.
Always great to see it in action. So this is what I'm going to show here and walk you through is an example of a side of our product called Q Everywhere, and it's the web applications protection, and it's part of our Q Protect suite. And it's demonstrating how you would set up a web application to be post-quantum protected. Go ahead and hit it, Pat. So this is a look into the cryptographic controls and insights available with Q Everywhere. Again, the web application side of the Q Protect suite. And Q Everywhere is an easily integrated, robust, all-in-one software-based solution that introduces post-quantum agile encryption to existing web applications to protect web traffic. Again, we can talk application to application offline. This is the web server side. So within the Q Protect console, administrators can connect web applications with Quark, the Q Protect orchestrator, to establish these post-quantum safe connections. And this process is called client creation, and it begins, as you'll see here, by providing a name and description of the web application for easy identification. And to configure the web application as a client for Q Everywhere connections, you just add the application's IP and port. Cryptographic agility, this is the ability to select which algorithms are in use, and Garrison spoke to this, as well as change one for another without disruption to your system's uptime. And this is super important in this new era of control over your cryptography. The current NIST recommendation is Crystal's Kyber for Chem, but if for whatever reason it becomes important to select another finalist algorithm and put it into production, admins have full control to define the cryptographic policy for this web application and a selection of NIST post-quantum algorithms along with desired key lengths. So with this information, a post-quantum registration key is generated, and this key is then utilized by the administrator to complete the client's registration with Quark. And these keys will regenerate every 10 minutes just for increased security. The Q Secure web application client is now created, and you can see that the client's state will remain pending until that registration key is used. But once fully registered with Quark, the data from the client's quantum resilient connections will appear in this monitoring dashboard, and further insights can be found in the logs. The Q Protect dashboard empowers admins with real-time insights into their network's cryptography and quantum safe connections. And you'll see dots pop out on the map here, and as visitors across registered Q Everywhere client web applications, they'll visit the site, and you can see them popping up, and admins can observe these connections being made from across the globe. You can also track the number of quantum resilient keys generated by Quark. You can monitor Quark's health and know when logs are being created and gain insights into errors. And you can also see the operating system and browser end users are using to leverage Q Protect browser-based web applications. You can also drill into each data point Each data point is connected to a larger set of logs that enables admins with deeper visibility into a network's cryptographic infrastructure and user traffic. So you can learn more about post-quantum connections created, troubleshoot, and even identify potential bad actors via their attempts to communicate with a registered Q-protected client. For visitors to a Q-protected web application, their experience remains unchanged. And so here's an example website that's been registered as a Q Everywhere client. And as the site's page is refreshed, you'll see that the user's content load. And behind the scenes, our browser agent loads on and a QSL session is created and bringing invisible but really powerful quantum resilience to all of these transactions and sessions. And you'll see here the loading screen. For the purposes of this demo, the load time was elongated with a brief visual to show the site's information being Q protected, but it'll be super quick in real life. Within the network logs, the payload's encrypted call and response reflects the post-quantum encrypted session creation. And that's that. So QEverywhere provides post-quantum protection for web applications, access through every end user device, whether it be mobile, desktop, or IoT, with simple setup for admins and absolutely zero installation requirements or change of experience for end users. And that is how you create post-quantum secure connections for your web applications simply. Feel free to reach out if you want to take a deeper dive into whether it's the Q Everywhere side or our other capabilities in the Q Protect suite.
Just so everyone knows, again, we have Q&A available at the bottom of the screen. If you want to type in questions there, we'll get to those in just a second. This will be the biggest upgrade cycle in computer history, maybe depending upon how you think of upgrades in human history. This is all of the public key encryption needs to change out. And this is why we need this cyber modernization. As I was saying earlier, we've had, the same system, the same protocol since, 1977. So again, key size has changed, but this is really a problem. And it's a fundamental problem because there's so much at stake. When you think of a problem of this size, if someone does come online with a quantum computer, it's going to be fundamental. And some say, well, RSA 2048, you need 4100 qubits, got it. That's a big machine. It's a lot of coherence and error correction. But, there's still a lot. We validated at RSA that there's still quite a few organizations that are running single DES encryption still. Now they have some RSA as well, but, if you think of single DES, triple DES, both of those now have been outdated, but they're still in place. So we don't see a quantum event such as Q Day happening on a single day. What we see is as quantum computers become more powerful, they'll start decrypting the easier encryption, and then it'll go down the line. Next slide, Pat. And again, this slide is just here to say we had a nice mention in Time Magazine, but it's here to say that the quantum computers will be weaponized prior to the use of humanity here. You think about quantum that can be used for everything from genomics, protein folding, material science, chemistry, aeronautical design, weather prediction, logistics and optimization, because they handle multivariate problems so well, and global minimums. Well, factoring is a global minimum, so that's why they're so good. Next, please. And this is what people say. Well, 4100 qubits again. That's a lot for Shor's, but what we're seeing now is there are different ways to solve this problem, and these are 4 examples of how a quantum computer doesn't have to do all of the heavy lifting with standard quantum algorithms. We can entangle systems. So think of, instead of one 4100 qubit system, what if you could entangle 10 400 qubit systems? You've got hybrid classic models where you'll have quantum do its share, but you may use a supercomputer on the side. More efficient algorithms. People are getting very smart with these now. Even things like reverse multiplication. You don't have to go into technical detail, but safe to say, it's not just simply that one big, large, computer, quantum computer. There are ways that people are getting very clever. Next slide, please. And again, the steal now, harvesting of data now, like we talked about with the FBI, DOJ situation, 20 years of harvested data. I hope it's encrypted. But 20 billion devices have to upgrade. And to give you an example of how clever things are getting, there was a paper put out from China back in December that they claim that they can use a hybrid quantum classical model and crack RSA with 372 qubits. Now, it's been debunked in some cases, but at the same time, we've also seen that there are others that say, well, not so fast. So anyway, the prize is huge, right? The prize is huge. So it's going to get worked on by nation states. And the sooner that we can get upgraded here, we could change out public key cryptography and communications and wrap those channels at QSecure. We don't force people to change out their encryption. They could simply wrap what exists. In other words, use what you have. We'll put a quantum channel over it, and that just gives it extra protection. So let's go to Q&A now, and we'll get some questions answered here. So we'll start out here. So let's give this one over to Craig. Craig, if you're still on audio there. Here's a question. Chris says, how will having short-lived keys work with certificates that were issued with long-lived keys? Will they be able to converse? You're on mute there, Craig.
Yeah, I guess I switched over, buddy.
Hey, we got you.
Can you hear me
There you
okay?
go. Gotcha.
Yeah. What do you know? Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
No worries. Chris says, how will having short-lived keys work with certificates that were issued with long-lived keys? Will they be able to converse?
Yeah, they will, but I think that the short-lived keys, well, it's kind of a catch-22 in that regard of when we do short-lived or long-lived, but they will. I guess I'll leave the short answer is that they absolutely will. And I think what's going to also help is a lot of customers are still using that manual capability. And by having that dynamic capability, as we call it, maybe using an external key source is going to help with that too, Skip. So I think that's really my short answer to that.
Thanks, Craig. Next one, Garrison, this is for you. Do your platforms run in a browser tab?
So yes, they do. So any web application website that is any web application or website that is Q protected actually does run straight in the browser, unmodified and compatible with 98% of browsers in the last 5 years.
And I think to add to what Garrison said, so this is the Q Everywhere product. And as Craig mentioned on the satellite tests that we did, we were able to create quantum channels up to LEO satellites and then failed even up to GEO satellites from Starlink up to Intelsat and back down without putting any software on the end device. So nothing went up on the satellite. Pretty important. And the idea is scalability here. We've got to get this stuff rolled out, and we can, right? And to secure all of these channels before somebody tries to break into them. And then Marwan, oh, go ahead, Becca. You want to
Just to throw up another quick qualification there too. Yes, browser tab, good. There are a number of ways to deploy the product. What you were seeing in my presentation was, again, the web application side. What you were seeing kind of broadly throughout the presentation, in addition, is kind of how do you get between applications as well? So just another kind of yes and.
Yeah, thank you, Becca. Marwan says, and I'll give this one back to Craig. Craig, this is for you. Can you provide info on the Cisco SCIP protocol? I know you went over it, but maybe talk about that link or whatever else you'd like to add here.
Yeah, Skip, can you hear me okay, bud?
Gotcha, yeah.
No pun intended on Skip, by the way.
I love the name. I mean, that's fine by me.
Yeah, some of the links out, I put a link in the presentation, and what I would say is contact your Cisco account team. That's how we're going to work with you on that. If you have a particular QKD in mind or something along those lines, we'll work with you on that, typically like an NDA in place. And then, it's typically all the work is going to be done on the QKD or the external server side versus ours. We're ready. Both our code is ready for that. So that's what I would say is reach out to your account team or reach out to me and I'll help you get there.
Great. Thank you for that, Craig. Becca, for you next. Kevin asked, do you use proprietary PQC algorithms?
The answer is no. So we really strongly believe and customers believe as well that everything is right now the customers are in highly regulated spaces, and that's where the data with the shelf life and the SNDL threat live. And in those highly regulated spaces, you don't want to come in with proprietary cryptography. So we use and orchestrate all of the NIST PQC algorithms that are in the standardization process right now. So we default to their provisional standard Kyber for KEM, as well as support. It's very important kind of thinking of this migration as a migration to more broadly control over your cryptography. So this crypto agility piece is something that's very important to customers, and it's the ability to swap between these algorithms. And while we very highly recommend you use the standard, there are other finalists in this competition that you can switch to for whatever reason, giving you that control over your cryptography.
Thank you, Becca. Becca, stay on, and Craig, jump back on here as well. So this question is around the timing and also the cyber modernization. The question is, even though we don't know the timing, is this upgrade all about quantum, or is it really, do we really need to do this cyber modernization anyway?
Becca, you or I?
I'll you first.
You know, I can I say that the answer is yes and yes. You know, Skip, I'm interested in your input on that as well. I think that it's needed. I looked at other analogies within the industry. I was thinking about kind of preparing for this, and as I talk to customers, and you know, I guess the risk is if we don't do it. But I think it's a combination of both, right? But I do like that modernization is kind of giving us some, you know, a little, I don't want to say a finish line, but it's giving us some things to get towards, right? And maybe gets us moving a little faster as well, I guess, is what I would say.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think, you know, we will probably do a webinar sometime here in the near future, talking about how to kind of facilitate adopting a lot of these other elements of cyber modernization, zero trust being a really fundamental one. But I think, you know, we talk about cryptography upgrades are not new, right? But the joke in the industry right now is, you know, as people think about taking inventory of the cryptography at work in their networks, the joke is kind of like, find where single DES is hiding, right? And it's this idea that there's these encryption upgrades have been kind of whack-a-mole style in the past. Yeah. And so, you know, single DES was broken in like the 90s. And so the idea of cyber modernization and kind of, it will be a mistake if we just use this upgrade cycle and ignore kind of the opportunities that come along with it. So if we once again play whack-a-mole, it's kind of the more honestly dangerous in the long-term way to handle this, because you end up with, you know, single DES hiding somewhere. So this kind of approach where it takes it ushers in these components of cyber modernization, of crypto agility, and being able to control a lot of these different pain points and have that auditability and visibility, I think is how we need to be looking at this upgrade cycle.
And Becca, I guess I would add, I love what you had to say there. And I think I wanted to mention it earlier, and I guess I wouldn't advise customers, don't try to boil the ocean, which what I was earlier saying was, you know, I was thinking kind of like work inside out, but I don't really care where you start, but don't try to boil the ocean. You know, pick up those areas that are high risk, but don't make it the entire enterprise. Try to start, you know, crawl, walk, and run, as I like to say. And, you know, maybe that might be a good starting point. You'll probably learn a lot from it as well, even if it's just a smaller domain. I would just add that to what you said, which I really liked.
Yeah, spot on.
Great, thanks. Stay on, you guys. Got a second question here on kind of a follow-on to crypto agility. So maybe describe crypto agility in your words, and then why is it so important?
Sure. Yeah, I think and sometimes the phrase crypto agility can make people think about crypto, like cryptocurrency, but we're talking about the cryptography side. And the idea of crypto agility is, you know, it is kind of the opposite of that whack-a-mole I find every instance of legacy encryption and swap it out. It's the idea of being able to do that on the fly. So right now NIST has they've got two categories. They got KEM and they've got digital signatures. Those are the algorithms that we currently use that are at risk of being broken by a quantum computer. So NIST is running this competition to usher in the new standards in a post RSA world, so to speak. And so the idea here is, PQC is not going to be an end in itself. I think Garrison mentioned this. There will be another cryptography upgrade. So, in this phase, when we're upgrading everything to post quantum, and this is for data in transit right now, data in motion. And so this is the crypto agility. This is the idea that you can, with this overlay, have visibility. So set the policy, like you're going to use Kyber for most of these use cases, but also the ability to swap out to any of these other finalist algorithms should the need arise. And again, into the future, when new standards come out and as the threat landscape evolves in cryptography and decryption, being able to also swap those out on the fly without disruption to your systems, without having to go find every instance. So really this push button kind of modular approach to cryptography.
Great. I got one last question here. Garrison, Becca. So how can we test what you have? So I think they're speaking of the Q Everywhere product. In other words, we talked about testing, and they want to know what's entailed in doing a test.
Absolutely. Yeah, just give us a ring. We deploy pretty simply. The demo we walked through today is a good example of kind of how quick you can get up and running. Yeah, just give us a ring and we'll help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's all the questions. Looks like we've got 13 minutes left here, and we're going to give that back to everybody. Want to thank everyone for coming on today and joining us on this webinar. We're open to questions. There's contact information on the screen. Happy to take your inbound questions, thoughts. If anybody, let's do that. Happy to do that. So, and we have another webinar coming up. We'll keep you on the list so you'll know when that's coming out, and we will be in touch. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.